Hello, I'm Jodie Stewart and I'm the Disaster Preparedness Coordinator for the Eden Community Access Centre's Disaster Preparedness Project. How much do you understand about how disasters are managed across the Bega Valley Shire? Would you like to know more about better preparing Eden and surrounding villages for future disasters? Tune in to Prepared for Disaster every Wednesday morning at 11, right here on 2SEA, as I share useful information and chat to good people doing great things in preparedness, recovery and community resilience. Prepared for Disaster. It's all about building stronger, prepared local communities, ready to face more frequent disasters. Welcome to the Prepared for Disaster program, a new program about communities and disasters. I'm your host, Jodie Stewart, and I'm the Disaster Preparedness Coordinator for the Eden Community Access Centre. I'll be joining you fortnightly as we undertake a series of conversations about disasters and the role that communities do and can play in response to increasing disaster events. This show is produced and broadcast on the lands of the Thawa people of the Yuin Nation. I would like to pay my respects to elders past and present and to all First Nations people joining us today. I would also like to acknowledge First Nations sovereignty of the lands, air and waters, and that this sovereignty was never ceded. This is, was and always will be First Nations land. In this show, we will be discussing disasters and their impact. Some content may be distressing. Please look after yourself while listening, or if you think this is not for you, you can come back to the broadcast in an hour. The Prepared for Disaster program is part of the Disaster Preparedness Project. The Disaster Preparedness Project is an Eden Community Access Centre initiative. The project is funded through New South Wales Reconstruction Authority, formerly Resilience New South Wales, and is a 2-year funded initiative. The aim of the project is to bring the community together to develop a plan that can provide practical tools and strategies for us to be better prepared for future disaster events, whether that be floods, pandemics or fires. Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Prepared for Disaster program. We have a very exciting show for you today. Today we'll be talking all about community connectedness and the importance of coming together, supporting and caring for each other, and what this means for disaster preparedness. We are joined in the studio today by Cherie Mercado and Poore of the Eden Trailblazers. Now, Megan and Cherie are two of the masterminds behind the Eden Fitness Hub and Trailblazers Fitness Group. I'd like to welcome Cherie and Megan to the show. Now, I have invited Cherie and Megan in to chat with me today about this awesome Eden community-led initiative and to share their insights on the importance of bringing community together. Now, one of our key messages in the Disaster Preparedness Project is around community connection, and it was a theme that kept emerging throughout our engagement with community. It is a key priority for many. In particular, how to create opportunities for people to come together and connect as a vital means of looking after one another. So today is all about community connection and what is possible when we come together, when we care for each other, because well-connected communities are well-prepared communities. Now, carrying this caring forward, here at the Prepared for Disaster show, we love to hear human stories. Our guests aren't just talking heads, they are flesh and blood human beings with fascinating stories to tell us. So, Cherie, if I could start with you, could you tell us what the Cherie Mercado story is? What makes you tick?
What makes me tick? Well, I live in Eden. And I grew up in a small country town of a similar size. But I have been living in Eden a very long time, and I raised both my children here in Eden. I love the similarity to the small town I grew up in with the coastal bonus. So I love the quietness, the geography, the relative purity of the environment in comparison to other parts of Australia. So I've come to be quite embedded in this community as I worked here for a very long time as a physiotherapist. And during that role, I got to know many of the townspeople and how they linked to each other, and in fact unpacked some of the dynasties that have evolved over the history of Eden's time. So, of course, being a physiotherapist, I was probably fairly passionate about exercise, and getting me out of bed in the morning with 2 little children, a job for a long time. And during that time, I began to sense a future goal of being more involved with this community.
Awesome. Yes, small country towns have a lovely, gentle rhythm
They do
to them,
indeed,
don't they?
Jodie.
Awesome. What's the Megan Poore story?
Oh gosh, thanks Jodie. Well, I'm from South Australia originally, and I grew up in country SA in a town called Gawler, which is on the edge of the Barossa. These days when you enter Gawler, there's a big sign saying Gateway to the Barossa, which I rather fear might mean gateway to somewhere better. But no, Gawler's a great place, had a wonderful childhood there, lots of running around in the local scrub, lots of care and love from the community, from my parents. How did I fetch up in Eden, I suppose, would be a bit of a story too. I've studied and worked in Canberra for quite some time. Always liked Eden. It's part of my retirement plan, if you like. Bought a place here in 2014. And when during the pandemic, Dad became unwell. He and Mum live in country Victoria, just over the border in East Gippsland. Dad didn't get any better. So during the border closures, I decided it would be smart to move to Eden full time. So basically I could become a border resident, which meant I could get a border permit. Mum and Dad were living, Mum still lives there, Dad's since passed away, as I mentioned. But became a border resident. Mum and Dad's house is 300 metres inside the other side of the border bubble, as it was. So got very lucky. Was able to care for Dad in his last days. After that, made arrangements to work from home, as many people did during the pandemic, and I suppose the rest is history. I've been able to stay in Eden, where I get to run on the beach, had a dog, plenty of them there, meet the octopus in the rock pool if she's around, but yeah, brilliant place to be.
Yeah, awesome, and Eden's very lucky to have you, Megan. Now, another story that I want to hear a little bit more about today is the story of the Eden Trailblazers. Cherie, how did the Trailblazers initiative come about?
Well, there's quite a backstory here. So, before the Trailblazers, we had the Eden Fitness Trail Group. And that was a group of, originally 3 of us who got together. Fiona Campbell, Tatiana Pajo and myself, because we'd seen a lot of outdoor gyms in other towns, and we thought, wouldn't this be good if Eden had an outdoor gym? I think, in fact, our first meeting might have taken place at the Top Pub over a few drinks. A bit of an idea. So things slowly coalesced and came together. It probably took us about 9 months to actually form a committee. This was way back in 2017. In 2018, we started to do some sort of serious fundraising, I suppose. We wrote ourselves a mission statement. Felt like we were really getting on the page here. We applied for a club grant and we got $5,000. The local Twofold Ladies Club gave us $3,000. So we were starting to accumulate a bit of money now. And at that stage, Joy Robin joined our team as well. So there were now 4 of us in the group. Then along came a state government grant called My Community Project, tailor-made for us, because we had to partner with a local organisation. Well, the Bega Valley Shire Council already knew about us because they'd approved our project through a community proposal, project proposal. So we partnered with the Bega Valley Shire Council and submitted an application to participate in my community project, a one-off state grant. Now the great thing about this grant was people had to vote across 2 shires, so there were we were in a competition against at least 50 other grant applications for a community project. But our project got the most votes and we won the money. This was like winning the lottery. We are here now, we've got the funding, we can seriously do this. We're on board with the council, we are ready to go. So this is now 2020. So 3 years from that first conversation. By the end of, by November 20, we opened the equipment hub. We had a big opening. It was a cold and windy day. Happens in Eden. But quite a few people came along, including the mayor and local community members. So very exciting. And that's how we got the equipment, and the story goes on from there.
Wow, what an amazing example of people coming together and working together on mutual goals. Excellent.
Can I ask a question, Cherie? Was it difficult getting funding or finding funding sources, or was that just a simple web search?
Well, once you get into these processes, boy, do you find out about where the grants are. And there was someone working in council at the time who was actually doing how to write a grant application session. That was very helpful. And there was another person working in council at the time who would send you lists of pertinent and available grants so you could pick out the grant that you thought might do it. But with the My Community Project grant, you actually put down how much money you thought your project was going to cost. So you costed your project, and that was the amount of money they gave you, $120,000, which was like, yippee.
It's a substantial amount.
It was a good amount of money with what we also had in the bank. But I mean, the community had voted. We'd received the most votes across the Bega Valley Shire and the Eurobodalla. We'd run a magnificent cake stall up the street to which it sounds a bit like, exercise cakes, but never mind. It raised $1,000 and it spread the word. It was really permeating through the community, and there was an excitement about this as a possibility that could really happen.
Yeah, you created a buzz. Awesome.
We created a buzz.
Did you use the full 120,000?
Easily. In fact, on reflection, I should have asked for more. But guess what? More community input. Because our site was prepared by Michelin and Sons. They were very generous. Our concreting was done by Robert Horton and Todd Bolton. Local people contributing to a local project, not sending very big bills to council. So we spread our money really well. People were surprised.
Yeah.
What value we got for our money.
Excellent. Megan, I want to talk to you about your involvement. So how did you work with Cherie to bring some of these ideas to life?
Okay, well, I think it was in February 2021, I saw on Facebook, and I think a passerby as I was using the Fitness Hub said there's going to be an orientation/information session here this week. and, gave me the date. So I went and checked Eden Voice. Went down. There was 5 of us plus Cherie, I think, to start with. So went down, had a great session. Cherie took us through each and every piece of the equipment in the fitness hub, gave us ideas on how to use it, showed us the QR codes, which we're all now familiar with, that are placed on the equipment, so that we could watch videos about how to use the equipment. It just seemed like a good vibe. So then I think Cherie and I at some point just thought, hey, let's keep this going. Really, I just inserted myself into into the whole thing.
Much appreciated too, I can tell you, as things evolved.
Yeah, and that's right. I think they did just evolve. We stuck with the first 5 members or so. They told other people, look, this is a good thing. Let's get that going. We thought we should keep meeting weekly and just built it from there. In a way, it kind of built itself. It grew very organically. Doesn't mean to say that Cherie and I haven't spent a lot of time on planning and honing our model and our program, let's call it a program if you will, over a cuppa at each other's house. But we think now we've got a pretty good model of how things work, and the group's at such a stage that it can run itself, as it had to do last week when I was in Canberra and Cherie was in Japan. So yeah, they're very, very self-sufficient now.
Yeah, excellent. So you talked a little bit about the program. Can you tell us, Megan, what a typical Trailblazers session looks like?
Yeah, sure, Jodie. So we have 2 different starting times, but they vary throughout the year. During summer and daylight saving times, we start a session at 8 o'clock and at 9 o'clock. During the winter, so as soon as daylight saving finishes, we start at 8:30 and 9:30, just because it's starting to get a little bit cool. We do start on the dot, so dead on at 8:30 for this time of year. We often have a bit of a quick admin, if you like, 1 or 2 minutes of that, just if there's anything coming up that people need to know about as regards the equipment, or if any changes have been made, or any changes to advice that we might provide on the equipment. So we give a bit of an admin briefing. Sometimes we remind people that their participation is entirely at their own risk, and that they have to take responsibility for knowing their own limits. We will often also share stuff that's happening in the community. So if we know of an upcoming meeting or something that people might want to be involved with, we might mention that, and other Trailblazers might mention that as well. And then we get into the session proper. We've found something, again, a model that we think works pretty well, which is participants work at a station, as we call it, so one of the exercise areas, and they go for 3 minutes. We give them 3 minutes, sometimes 3.5, depending on how people are feeling. And then we have a 30-second transition exercise, which the Trailblazers themselves must come up with. It's all very organised, logistically speaking. So the person on the bike has to come up with the transition exercise, and then we just cycle people through the whole hub. Quite often, however, we do get a lot of extra participants.
We do, at times.
At
we
times.
have to be very quick off the mark, don't we, Megan,
Yeah.
to invent another station because we haven't got enough all of a sudden.
That's right, and it is very much on the fly sometimes. So, and that's why we also shifted to 2 start times. We started with 1 start time and 1 session, but by the time we were getting, I think one day we had a max of 21 people for 1 session. We thought we've got to split it up, so that meant another cup of tea, more planning. What are we going to do? But if we do get extra participants on the day, we can take a maximum of 10 for each for the station. That will get everyone a station each. And then we start adding in stations such as using the wall. We've got the wall down there, which we use as a bench, so people can do kind of bench type exercises on the wall. Or participants might do a walk or a little jog. So we do have other things that we can add in, bolt in as we need. And of course we have warm up and a cool down. And it's all very organised, I should say.
It is very well organised.
Awesome. And it's all has this fantastic backdrop, which is looking out into beautiful Twofold Bay.
Absolutely.
Awesome. That's a good segue into our first song. We're going to just have a break now. We're going to hear from Olivia Newton-John. Let's get physical. That was the late Olivia Newton-John with Let's Get Physical, a very pertinent song to our conversation here this morning. I'm joined in the studio by Cherie Mercado and Megan Poore from the Eden Trailblazers group. And we're talking about the amazing initiative that Megan and Cherie have been working on and the importance of community connectedness, bringing community together to work together on shared goals. So, Megan, I want to return to you. Now, research tells us that a well-connected community is a well-prepared community. What role do you think a group like the Trailblazers plays in bringing communities together?
Well, I think you've already mentioned it, Jodie. It's simple connection. It's getting to know who's who, what their circumstances are, thinking ahead in terms of resilience and preparation, thinking ahead to who might need help or who could be dragooned into helping, what resources are around. So I think that sort of thing can't happen at a higher level. It has to be local. It has to happen here. It has to happen in Eden. Don't also, I think, discount structure and consistency. They are important for community-led initiatives, especially if you've got, as Cherie and I have, something that's grown organically that tends to be more, can be more successful than stuff that's imposed from outside, and that gives us more control than something that's imposed from outside. So having people like Cherie and myself, who I think are pretty organised, the structure and consistency is important. And it also allows us, with a self-organised initiative like this, to just keep a bit more of that control. Having the two of us driving it, not just one person trying to do all the work. We can share it. If one of us is away, the other can pick up. And when we're not there, we've even got the Trailblazers, as I mentioned before, very well trained that they can do things themselves. And people also enjoy things like, the Trailblazers enjoy things like having simple T-shirts, Trailblazers T-shirts, which are getting known around town for the blue, and we also have white T-shirts. But that gives us a sense of togetherness as well, I think, within the group. And Cherie was just mentioning during the song that people wander past, maybe sometimes cruise ship people and others, and they see us there on a Thursday morning and they think, gosh, what's going on? All these people are there in the same T-shirt, what's happening? So we can quite often have a chat with those people. Yeah. It's all good.
Yes, creating a sense of community through something like a T-shirt. But
that's right.
And a shared interest.
Yes.
Exercise.
Awesome. Yes.
Over the water.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, Cherie, the Trailblazers is a really excellent example of community leading and self-organising to focus on those mutual needs and priorities like health and fitness that we've talked about and overall well-being. Now, the Disaster Preparedness Project has been focusing on supporting community members to step up and lead their communities to be better prepared for future disasters. Can you share with us your views on community taking the lead and driving the things that make them stronger?
Well, I guess I'd go back to that My Community Project grant, where the community became invested in the exercise equipment from the outset. They had to vote to make it happen. So suddenly the community knows about it and they're all coming together. If we all vote, they're all telling each other. There was a process of voting. They had to learn how to do it. So we created that buzz, as Jodie described it. So they were all invested. And then I guess once the Trailblazers started to evolve, I used to, because our Trailblazers sign in every week, and I started a page, a blank page on the opposite page of the book, sign-in book, comments. Now, some of our comments were things like, wow, I haven't seen these people since I went to school. I haven't associated with these people since we played netball. It's just, or they just say to me, it's fantastic, Cherie, coming back and being part of this group of people some of whom I grew up with. So I felt that sense of community connectedness really coming out of the attendees at the group. The other thing they do, they don't just exercise in the fresh air overlooking the water, which research tells me, or through my friend Tatiana Pajo tells me, it's very good for mental health. They then all go off and have a coffee together and maybe a piece of cake, but they talk and share their stories, and they talk to their friends, and someone else might be coming up the street and there's all the blue t-shirts. So it's really connecting community members. It promotes the sharing and understanding of others' situation, this talking capacity. But the other thing Megan and I notice, when people first come along at the beginning of any one session, they're fairly, normal. Like their facial expression is, good morning, ho hum, sign in. Halfway through the session, they all start smiling. By the end of the session, they're all laughing. So we see this elevation of mood through their connectedness. It's just fantastic to observe these changes.
And I think it's also been good for new people who come to the town as well, because one of the key things we do with Trailblazers is we try to remember to post every week in Eden Voice. We post on the Fitness Trail group for Facebook, and then we post on Eden Voice. And that's really raised the profile. Lots of photos, which we use with permission, lots of photos on Eden Voice. And that's, I think, a really good way of not just advertising the group, but demonstrating that you can get out there, you can do it, you can find support. There are other people who will exercise with you, and that there's a base and a model and a format. So that's been good for new people, I think, as well, to the community. We've garnered a few.
We have indeed. Yes, very welcoming group of people at the hub every week.
And it's it's establishing new relationships, but it's building and nurturing existing relationships. It's creating a space for new residents to feel included and supported, and getting that all-important motivation to exercise, which we all know can be a hard nugget of gold to find. Awesome. Cherie, now, the Trailblazers were one of our very first community groups to host a community table talk. Now, our community table talks were part of the Disaster Preparedness Project's community engagement strategy. Community table talks were small, intimate conversations, often around a kitchen table, often involving people known to each other, and it provided a way for community to start a conversation about community-led disaster preparedness. Now, you were also one of the first community hosts to host a table talk. You hosted a table talk with some of the members of the Trailblazers in June 2022. Can you talk to us about your experience hosting a table talk, Cherie?
Well, I'd had a little bit of training. I was encouraged to undertake the training by Jody, who's interviewing us today, and Sharon. So that was critical to the training session because it gave us this structure on how to run the table talks. So I felt quite reasonably confident to run a talk, to host a table talk following the training. And I put it out there at the hub, as Megan was saying. We let members know pertinent information at the time, just to see how many people might come along. So a few of the Trailblazers came along, and we had our table talk in the SES shed. Now, that was fantastic in itself because I didn't know about the shed. and the contents of the shed.
I think they call it the unit, Cherie.
The unit. Megan's a member of the SES, I think.
I'm a floater.
A floater, a floating member. Just that venue expanded our awareness from the very outset, which Pam Cox facilitated for us, being a very active SES member, another local community member.
And a trailblazer.
And a trailblazer, all these connections that come together. It's just amazing how it unfolds. So there we were in the SES shed. Cherie's trying to do the hosting and Jodie's there just in case I make a big mistake, but explaining the process as well. We broke up into our little groups, and one of the striking things for me about running that was the need for people to tell their story. We'd been through a massive traumatic fire event here in Eden, followed closely by a pandemic, during which time no one was able to share their story very much, certainly not in a public sense. So time had gone by and people had stored their concerns, seemingly to me. So that really stood out for me, Jodie, during the did you notice that too yourself,
Yeah,
Jodie?
absolutely. It was, yes, a lot of that storytelling, that process of storytelling was very, very important during the table talks, and providing that opportunity for people to share their experiences and feel safe to share their experiences and have their experiences validated as well, I think was very, very important.
So what was the structure of the talks?
Absolutely.
How did they work?
We divided into smaller groups and we had leading questions. I think there were 3 or 4 leading questions. So fantastically afterwards, Jodie actually sent us a summary of what had gone on. So one of their questions was, what was your experience of living through the bushfires, for instance? So we shared at each table those experiences, and some of the key themes started to emerge from that question, that feeling of being abandoned. There was no plan. That feeling of being isolated. Everyone's saying similar impressions from that event. Getting thrown in the deep end, families being split up, that expression of the lack of organisation and the chaos. And I guess then, still using that question, what started then, what would we do in the future if we were to develop a plan so that this does not happen again? So we all know what to do, where to go, how to be prepared.
So the final question was, how can we work together to be better prepared? So it was a question around personal preparedness, but also a question around how we could all come together as a community to support each other to be better prepared for future disasters. And there was a range of fantastic ideas tabled at the Trailblazers table talk, but across all the table talks that we hosted as well. So yes, and that was part of us taking those ideas and moving them towards our project lab, which I'm going to talk to you all about at the end of our episode today, to support some of those ideas to come to life.
Were your other table talks also with organised groups like ours, or were there just general calls for table talks as well?
There were general calls for table talks, and they were also, we approached community groups as well to host table talks, because they were a logical sort of place to capture groups of people, because as I mentioned in the beginning, and I was describing the table talks, they work well with people that are known to each other, because it creates that very safe space for people to have those very challenging conversations, and people feel safe and supported to articulate their experiences, to also propose potential ideas. So it creates that lovely sort of space for people to have those conversations. So yes, we put a general call out. We undertook 2 table talk host training sessions, and Cherie came to our very first training session. So we were also providing skills for community to host their own table talks. Sharon and I hosted many, but also community members hosted their own table talks as well, which is a fantastic thing. So, and hopefully it is a model that people will continue to embrace, to have really important community conversations, because it works for conversations around disaster preparedness, but it also works around conversations around other really important community issues. And you're more than welcome to contact me, jody.accesscentre@gmail.com, and I can discuss with you the table talk model, which is a brilliant model for having community conversations. We're going to have a little bit of a break. We're going to hear from Survivor, Eye of the Tiger. That was Eye of the Tiger by Survivor. If you're just joining us, you've missed a fantastic conversation I'm having here live in the studio with Cherie Mercado and Megan Poore from the fantastic Eden initiative, the Trailblazers. We've been chatting with Megan and Cherie about this fantastic community-led initiative and chatting about the importance of community connectedness, because the Trailblazers is a fantastic example of community coming together, self-organising, working together, caring for one another. I have a final question for Cherie and Megan. And I'd like to start with you, Megan. Now, this is a question that we asked of participants that came along to our Resilient Eden workshops that we held in November. So these were workshops where the community came together. We workshop projects ideas. We had continued our discussions from the table talks. And one of the questions that we asked, that I'd be interested in your response, Megan and Cherie, is what does a well-prepared and resilient Eden and surrounds look like to you? What is your vision for a stronger, more resilient Eden and surrounds?
Well, Jodie, I suppose the bureau speak answer would be giving people the skills and knowledge and confidence to help themselves and others. But I think in putting it in the context of Trailblazers, where we're really dealing with people's physical fitness, we do know that research shows that physical fitness leads to improvements in mental health, and research also shows that social connection is also good for mental health. So Trailblazers ticks both of those boxes. If you've got good physical health and good mental health, it can only lead to higher resilience within the community, in Eden and the surrounds. As regards Trailblazers, it's probably no surprise to those who follow us that our participants are mostly women. We do have a few blokes, but our participants are mostly women and older women. And women do have specific health needs throughout the life course. Especially once you hit menopause, there are huge changes affecting your healthy ageing. You start to lose access to certain hormones that you once had easy access to. You need to work harder to keep your muscle mass, keep a bit of weight off. So having older participants who are largely women, we notice amongst that cohort at least huge improvements in their physical fitness after, to be honest, just 3 or 4 weeks of taking part and making an effort. So you can see quick changes for people, and people can experience quick changes, and I think that should be very motivating for people who want to take part. And then after that, we do see improvements probably every 6 weeks or so amongst participants, maybe for up to, I don't know, Cherie might be keeping better track, but I'd say that might continue for 9 months or however long it takes to have a baby, and then a bit of a plateau at a good level where people really don't make much gain unless they put in extra effort, which of course we always encourage. But I think that all of this as a package kind of leads to more resilience individually, but then also physically, but then also with the social connection that Trailblazers encourages amongst the community as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. Cherie, what's your vision?
Well, thank you too, Megan. I think that's a great summary of the Trailblazer contribution to community resilience and preparation, because undoubtedly we will need to cope with another disaster in the future, and the Disaster Preparedness Project is all about that, and we're just a little cog in the wheel, but, you know, very well received, and we do notice changes. So another one of the changes that we notice in our Trailblazer groups is their ability to run an exercise session themselves. So they didn't have that from the outset, but they've developed that over the past 2 years. In fact, when we take January off, a group of them continued. So I think that shows they're taking on that initiative to do things for themselves and to self-organise. So
transferable skills in a way, isn't it?
They are. Yeah. They're learning skills and taking them on board, which is fantastic to see. Fantastic outcome in the community. And I guess that's, well, I like to think it seeps and drip feeds down to the rest of the community. But from attending that last session of yours, Jodie, when you brought all the table talk sessions together and summarised them, I feel that a community which is well prepared will have a plan. They need a plan. They will have a plan. They'll not only have a town plan, which will tell them things like where they can go in emergency, when it's time to leave and to take notice of that. They'll know their neighbourhood, who's vulnerable within their neighbourhood. They'll have prepared their home. They'll have clean gutters, for instance. All the hoses will not have holes in them, as happens when you're running around faced with an emergency that you never thought was coming. We have to remember there was a disaster, and we have to be prepared for the next one. So that resilient and strong community looks like that. They're aware of the plan, where it is, and they have their own plan as well. They've put all their documents in a folder. They can just pick it up and put it in the car. The car is packed with an emergency kit all the time. So to me, this is my vision for this stronger, more resilient Eden and the preparedness for the next disaster.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Cherie Mercado and Megan Poore, for joining me today in the studio. It was a fantastic conversation. I enjoyed hearing all about the fabulous work that you are doing. Just finally, before you go, if community want to join the Trailblazers group, what do they need to do?
Just come along, basically. Turn up on a Thursday morning, either at, perhaps we're going to 8:30 now.
Yes, now that we've stopped daylight savings, we're moving to an 8:30 start and a 9:30 start. So that's on a Thursday morning. Pick your session and just rock up.
That's it. And then we'll either buddy you, or depending on the numbers and whether, if Megan and I are both present, one of us might be able to sort of buddy with you. So it's as simple as that. Yep. Come along and have a look.
Awesome. Now, those that aren't familiar where the fitness hub is, whereabouts is it located in Eden?
It's in the RSL Park, just down from the RSL Hall, which is on the corner of Corkle Street and Bass Street, overlooking Aslings Bay.
just up
Beach Bay.
just up from the Mary MacKillop Museum
Yes.
and the Cenotaph.
That's it.
Perfect location.
find us there.
Perfectly placed for a wonderful outdoor workout. Thank you, Cherie and Megan. Now, before we say goodbye to you all for another week, I just want to have a little bit of a Project Lab update. But before that, we might have a song. Hello and welcome back. That was Crowded House, Something So Strong, which is a perfect segue into my Project Lab update. Now, our fabulous Project Labbers are on a mission to create something so strong, which is a strong and robust Eden community. They're creating positive change in their community. They're an awesome and passionate bunch, and I'm so thrilled and privileged to spend every fortnight with them. I'm constantly inspired by their dedication, their hard work and community mindedness. This is an example like the trailblazers of a community coming together, self-organising and working towards mutual goals. The Project Lab is a disaster preparedness project initiative. The lab, short for laboratory, but we also really love cute Labradors, is a space for the community to come together and be supported to develop project ideas. Now, this could be an idea big or small. For example, you may have an idea to start a walking club or distribute resident packs in your neighbourhood filled with preparedness information. At the lab, we support you to develop these ideas through a flexible project planning process, and we help you to bring these projects to life. The lab is where the rubber hits the road, where we're getting moving on important projects that can support our communities to be better prepared for future disaster events. And the rubber sure did hit the road on Friday, March 31st. Our Project Lab team, Prepare to Party, hosted their first neighbourhood street party for the Eden Lookout residents. It was a great success with over 20 residents joining in the fun. They came and they partied. Now, the Prepare to Party team are working together to revitalise a really wonderful Eden tradition, and that's the neighbourhood street party. It's a great way to bring neighbours together and build really strong connections, what we've been talking about here today, which are much needed before and after disasters. Now, the Eden Lookout Party is the first of 3 parties that the group is planning to roll out across Eden. The aim of these get-togethers is to continue to bring neighbours together, to connect, and to gradually discuss ways that they can share their preparedness plans and support one another in an emergency. A big congratulations to our Prepare to Party project team. This is a huge achievement and a testament to their hard work. If you would like to host your own street party, you can contact me at jody.accesscentre@gmail.com. You can also come along to our next lab session, Thursday, April 13, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Eden Library event space. We would love to see you there. We provide great food and great company. Now, the next episode of our Prepared for Disaster show, I will be chatting with Barb Ricks, a First Nations Bushfire Recovery and Resilience Officer for the Australian Red Cross, and UN man Nathan Ligon. I'm so super excited for this episode. I'll be chatting with Barb and Nathan about First Nations recovery, resilience and preparedness, and the amazing work that is happening in the First Nations community here and on the far south coast. Tune in 11 a.m. Wednesday, April 19th for what will be a fantastic episode. Prepare for Disaster is broadcast live every fortnight and repeated the following week. So, if you want to listen to us again, tune in next Wednesday. Tell all your friends. Tune in Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Thanks for joining me. Until we chat again, be well and stay connected.